All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Tom Nebel. I'm glad you joined me and my colleague Pam Liebe today. We're doing a webinar here where this is through the GoToMeeting format. And you may have joined me in the past in a number of different contexts when I've done webinars. We've done it in various formats. And today we're going with GoToMeeting. It's a little bit more reliable from some of the things we've experienced. But whether you jumped here by virtue of a social media a connection or just someone passing this on, or even just by a personal knowledge of us, we're glad that you're here. My role and Pam's role is with an organization called Giant Worldwide, and you are seeing a logo there right at the right on your screen, because today we're talking about relational intelligence and the bottom line. I live in Madison, Wisconsin. Pam lives about an hour to my that way. Well, I guess it would be that way on camera. An hour toward closer to Milwaukee. So, Pam, what do you have to say? What do you have to say by introduction for yourself?
Yeah, I'm just really glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me to join you. I have a kind of an unlikely career path in that I spent most of my career in the for-profit world as a CPA. I worked with a international CPA firm for a number of years, and then I worked at a telecommunications company in the greater Milwaukee area for a couple of years. I owned my own business after that, and then jumped into a lot of non-for-profit roles. And Tom, that's how you and I first got to work together, was in the role that you had, where we did some international travel in the church planting world, and that was exciting. And yeah, I'm just so thrilled to be a part of Giant Worldwide, and I think this is just an excellent opportunity for people to really grow and really find enrichment in their lives, and there's no greater joy for me than helping people in that direction. So.
All right, now that's a cool thing to say, and joy sounds like a real, happy kind of a soft place to be, but you are a bottom line person, and you have spent your career in making sure things work. And really, that's what we're talking about today when we say relational intelligence and the bottom line. We're not saying, hey, let's all just try to get along for its own sake. We're saying there are some things to learn if we want to be profitability, if we want to live in a profitable place, whether it is in a for-profit space or a not-for-profit space. We're about mission achievement, but we know that so much mission achievement gets trashed because of relational intelligence or the lack thereof. So. Let's start out right away, Pam, and I use this as a graphic here where we talk about financial implications for relational intelligence. In a broader sense, you might just say mission achievement, but what comes to mind for you when we talk about what's left on the table because people are lacking in this area of emotional connectivity?
Yeah, I think from my experience, and I'm sure yours too, in just working with a variety of different clients like you do, it's so much easier to just kind of stay in the cerebral place and talk strategy and increasing sales and cutting costs as it relates to profitability. And I think the whole concept of developing people, that does sort of sound soft and does not sound profit-driven at all. In fact, I'd be interested to hear your word on this, Tom. Sometimes we'll talk to people, and I've heard people say, well, in our organization, we just really focus on hiring good people. And we get the right people in there, and then we really don't have to worry about leadership development. How do you respond when you hear that?
Yeah, well, I do hear people say that, and at the right time, I might say something like, how well is that working for you? Because Yeah. In fact, I recently said this to somebody. I said, "Tell me how many of the superstars that you hired a few years ago. You know, when you got your whoever had the awesome resume, you know, whoever really looked shiny and presented well in an interview. I mean, how well are those superstars doing these days?
Yeah.
And you know, do you have any regrets as you look into the rearview mirror? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So
True.
but I see that
Um,
straight across the board.
yeah. Yeah. Me as well. And, so I guess to address your question more specifically about these, the implications of what we would call underperforming teams. I mean, I think about, often we don't see our people within our organizations as assets, but if you want to talk financial terms, it's all about profitability and profit and loss, but really our people are either assets or they're liabilities. And when we really develop and pour into our people, what we're doing is we're taking potential liabilities and we're turning those into assets. And at least in the for-profit world, where I've come from, everyone knows that as your assets increase, your profit increases. So that's one way I kind of think about it. But I also think in terms of, when our people are all aligned and we're all pulling in the same direction, there's always a benefit to the bottom line when we have people, all on the same page, working toward that mission like you kind of just talked about. And things like, I'm sure you're familiar with just turnover in all sorts of organizations. Turnover is a huge issue as we talk to people, and it's a huge expense. It's a huge expense for companies.
Well, it's, in fact, it's even hard to calculate. Now, there is such a thing as necessary turnover and encouraged turnover. In fact, I'm working with an organization now where I have a meeting with them. I'm saying, listen, we don't mind it if you're less than perfect. In fact, on this relational intelligence side, I'm okay if you got some places to grow in. I mean, we all do. But what I will also say to them is if you are resistant, then I don't want you around here. If you're responsive, we're glad to work with you, and for you to grow. So you know what, Pam, is jumping into my mind right now, and I know a few people online right now are here in our home state of Wisconsin, but now we can relax and breathe again because football season is underway, and the Packers started their training camp this week. And one of the things that happens with, if you look at championship teams straight across the board, in just about any sport, there are those that are all about free agency. Who do we bring in? Who do we trade in? Who do we get rid of this, get rid of that, out, in, out, in? And there is some piece to that. But you will see on balance, championship teams are those that took their human assets, whether through the draft or through free agency or unrestricted free agency, and they take people and they say, we see potential and we're going to work with this. Okay? And on balance, those become championship teams. I think you're saying that there's a similarity let's just say in for-profit space, when you're looking at those that comprise an organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You and I were brainstorming a little bit earlier. We were talking about other ways that the price is paid because people don't relationally connect, and we're going to swerve into that in a moment. In your experience, what have you seen just relative to, it could be everything from people unwilling to speak the truth to each other to toxic undercurrents, to people keeping their heads down, to gossip, what have you seen, in your experience where those kind of things have chipped away from the bottom line?
Yeah, definitely. I think about the telecommunications company that I worked for. We ended up being bought out by a larger company, and as you know, that's always a very volatile time. And mergers and acquisitions is just tough. And you know, I think now in my role as a senior associate with Giant, how much we as a telecommunications company could have benefited from having really poured into our people at that time and helped them develop what we call our core. I know you're going to get to that. Because there was just tons of uncertainty and drama and gossip and a lack of communication, just a lot of mistrust. And it's that whole analogy that I know I've heard you use as well, is at the end of the day, people could not get out the door fast enough into their cars and out of there. You know, that was a picture of what was really going on inside that building if you looked at the parking lot at 5:01 every day.
Right. Well, sure. And you know, one of the things that we say is that, you know, culture trumps strategy. And that's really true. You know, what the behaviors are that are accepted are going to really trump the strategy. So we're going to move into this place now. We're going to talk about the core, but this is the other thing that comes to mind for me, Pam. And by the way, everybody, we will open up the microphones a little bit later because we want to turn this into some conversation. So you might say, yeah, here's one I could tell you about, or here's one I could tell you about. Now, here's one I'm just going to tell you. Everybody I talk to, and I don't care, you know, I do a lot of work with in places of ministry, other nonprofit places, and more profitable places. Just about everybody you talk to these days, because this is 2016. So just about everybody has their 2020 vision. I mean, I almost feel embarrassed when I say that, because then the guy sitting across the table from me, he was part of dreaming up their 2020 vision. You know, we're going to have our next good thing or our next great thing, and this is what we're shooting for. And I think what we're saying as we move on to this issue about the core is that we want your 2020 vision to be more than just some paper that made it onto a wall or looked at a cute little logo or something that was on everybody's you know, computer screens for a couple of years until somebody said, let's just bury that because it's doing us more harm than good right now.
Yep, I agree.
Let's talk about this one. Okay, we talk about the core, and in a moment you're going to see where we're going with this, with the issue of relational intelligence. But I think what we were referencing before is we're just saying that ourselves, let's just say in terms of our organizations, this is true in our lives and our families, all our other circles of influence. But let's just say for this conversation, we're talking about making your companies, your organizations, your schools, your what have you be better. Individually, we are comprised of what's known as the IQ, the EQ, and the PQ, all right? And we'll frame those out one at a time. Let me start just by talking about IQ. IQ, we know what that refers to. It's the intelligence quotient. How smart are you, more or less? But relative to an organization, we would just say, how good are you? What are your core competencies? What are the things you're good at? What'd you get hired for? You know, you got a degree on the wall, you maybe attended some seminars, you punched your ticket, and we looked at your resume, we've interviewed you, and you say, yep, this person has the competencies to perform well and to be part of a high-performing team, okay? And IQ matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the only thing that matters, so take us to the next.
Right on.
Score.
Yeah, and you know, it's the IQ and hard skills. Those are the essential. That's the essential component, probably for the reason that we hire people, and it is essential. And what we want to suggest is that the EQ and the PQ. If you notice, all three of these circles are the same size. So the EQ and the PQ just as important as the hard skills. In fact, executives will tell us that the IQ is really the reason that they hire people, but the EQ and the PQ are really the reasons that they fire people.
What does EQ mean and what does PQ mean?
So when we say EQ, we're really talking about emotional quotient. That would be, you know, how well do we connect with people? How well do we relate to other people? How well can we establish and maintain relationships, both within the organization, with our colleagues, but also with our customers? Really, in a globalized economy where information is essentially free, it is that relational connectivity that is really, really important to have. And so we talk a lot about our connectivity as our ability to be present, and at Giant we really link productivity and presence. You know, how can we be both productive and present? And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I don't want to leave PQ out here. PQ is what we term personality quotient, and this is truly just someone understanding their wiring, understanding themselves. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Do they really know what it's like to be on the other side of them? And so you know, we help people develop all three of these circles in an understanding that they are all three equally important. And not everybody is naturally good at connectivity and relationships. Not everybody's really good at self-awareness, but they can grow in those things. There's potential for growth in both of those areas.
So let's just talk, let's maybe give you some for instances here, Pam. So when I think about this and I say there's IQ, okay, so we let's just say smart people. But we all know what it's like to be around smart people that we can't stand to be around, right? And, you know, so what does that look like? When we say somebody has a weak, let's just say EQ, you know, emotional quotient, or we're saying like this, you know, this relational capacity. What is that? What are some examples of that you could think of, you know, in the workplace?
Yeah, I think about, you know, people that nobody wants to be around them. They'll maybe walk through the door and, oh, hey Tom, how are you? Hey, did you get your numbers in? Are you ready? You know, are you going to be on time for the meeting? You know, there's no real connection at all. It's just boom, boom, boom. Maybe there's always a feeling of pressure around them, like they're always looking for something from me. They don't really care about who I am as a person. Yeah, just those, you know,
Well,
gosh,
sure.
I think we all.
Yeah, and
Pardon?
what I'm thinking of is, you know, people who are they're know-it-alls. There's no sense of humility. And by the way, I'm a guy who has know-it-all tendencies, so I'm particularly aware of that. All right, but you've got people who cannot be corrected. They deflect constantly. Blame goes everywhere else. And they can't apologize, right? So what happens is you have a cultural milieu. Am I saying that properly? But you have a cultural sense that it's every person for themselves around here. So you keep your head down. And you play along. You play by the rules. Okay. Well, if you're not going to be humble and apologize, don't count on me to do it. Or at the very least, I'll be passive aggressive, and I'll just find ways to undermine them. Okay. But what we're saying too is that if we individually don't have a decent emotional intelligence, we are undermining our influence because others just have no. I mean, you know, it would become a point of gossip or avoidance or any of those other things.
Right on. Absolutely. Yeah, those are hard people to be around.
And oftentimes I will hear it said, I mean, or people say, well, that's just the way so-and-so is. And then we just want to say in response, so far, okay, we don't want to accept that, okay, because the bottom line is being affected. Right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think as leaders too, you know, we don't want to undermine our influence, and leadership is influence. But if we don't have a developed sense of connectivity or self-awareness, we are really undermining our ability to influence in so many situations.
All right. So we can open this up for discussion. And, if you want to weigh in or anybody wants to contribute, just go ahead and unmute yourself and say yeah, or you can put yourself on camera and just describe, here's a situation, or here's something you guys haven't said that you've come to understand, or you might even say, here are some things that I've learned. In fact, I would like you, those who are listening or watching it, I'd like you to be able to think in terms of, hey, here's some advice that I would have, or ways that people can grow in this whole issue of relational connectivity, because the bottom line gets affected. So I just want you to know, want to welcome you in on that, because we can be a community of learning here right now. But Pam is, and until such time, or someone, if others do raise their hands, Chris, it looked like you unmuted yourself. Is there? Do you have a contributing point?
Yeah, if you one idea that has really worked well is to learn from one of my team members in a specific thing,
Okay.
such as I was really lacking in competency and asked for help, and it actually built the EQ between us.
Okay. So so what you're saying is to one way to improve connectivities with others is to speak into their, or to have them speak into your situation.
Right, and that way it became mutual. We learned from one another.
Nice, nice. Thank you.
Great. Certainly took a willingness on your part to a vulnerability to be able to admit that you were lacking in competency in that. So isn't that always a win-win when we tend to be vulnerable about what we don't know or our incompetence? I love that when good things come out of that. That's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of freedom in that because I was specific in what I wanted to learn from the person instead of just general mentoring or shadowing. It became a focal point, and it took the pressure off of both of us.
And that's how Chris became a diesel mechanic.
And now you know the rest of the story, Paul Harvey.
All right. Now, obviously we come here as Giant Senior Associates, so we tell you a little bit about what we do, but we're going to give you resources too that will really that we know will really enhance life. So some of this is commercials, right? And some of this is just coming alongside of you to say, we want your situation to be better. Pam, I want you to speak to this because we talk about these 6 metrics of high-performing teams. There's nothing better than being part of a team. Well, nothing better. I mean, I guess I'd prefer a Packers Super Bowl championship. But few things are better than being part of a team that really feels like they're pulling in the same direction, that we're valued individually, we really want to be there. It's the contrast to what we talked about earlier with the parking lot emptying quickly. It's wow, I look forward to going to work rather than feeling like I'm driving up to Dracula's castle. And that could be true whether it's work or church or school or virtual any sociological entity. So talk about this just for a moment, about the things that we measure to try to get a better handle on productivity.
Yeah, we sort of identified 6, we call them the 6 metrics, as you can see on the slide. 6 things that if they are in place on teams, we see productivity on that team or within that organization increase dramatically. And so I'll just give you the name of the 6. They are synergy, communication, capacity, execution, relationships, and alignment. I think, did I miss any? Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah, and those are very specific. We actually have a diagnostic tool that we often will use, particularly at the front end, but then also throughout our time of working with a team, to say, let's just have you answer this short survey. We have about 5 questions for each of the 6 metrics. and let's have your whole team do this diagnostic just to kind of self-assess. How are we doing in our relationships? Do we really believe the best, and do we believe in the contribution of everyone that's on the team? How are we doing with communication? Are we setting clear expectations, or is there confusion? Yeah, this is that 100x.
And yeah, and I'm sorry, I know I just interrupted you.
No, this is still good. I'm glad you brought this up. So this is just an example of the live diagnostic that we'll send out to people, and such a helpful tool because it gives, it's kind of like holding up a mirror for the team and saying, here's where we really are lacking. Maybe we're lacking in capacity. Maybe there's a few people on the team that are just overwhelmed and they haven't taken the time to apprentice others on the team to be able to do what they're doing. And so we have an issue with our capacity. We're at capacity because there's only a few people that can carry out the responsibilities of the team. Maybe we're misaligned. Maybe we're all pulling in different directions. And if we could all just get on board and pull in the same direction, our productivity would increase. So yeah, what else? I know you've used this a few times.
In fact, folks, we're going to walk you through this. We probably have about another 10, 12 minutes together on this webinar. But I was thinking about a lunch and learn opportunity that Pam, you and I led this week, and I had read a quote from another giant senior associate who was talking about how this stuff really works. And you remember the exact quote, and I don't have it right at my fingertips, but he said, I know this stuff works because I hate Joe a lot less than I used to. And we thought, well, that sounds like mission achievement, hating people less. But the truth is, we know what it's like. If you hate people, or in a subversive way, or it's just a quiet way, there's all these tensions. That if these can be released, we can take the percentages up pretty quickly, and see the payoff. So look at under relationship. Here's what happens, folks. And by the way, we can do this for you and your team. Okay, so we can generate a link for you. It'll have your name on it. And this one just has my name on because I couldn't think of anybody else to put on there. Okay, but you can see these 6 areas. And I know that on your screens you might have to kind of squint in there. But you'll see then that there are 5 indices under each of the 6. So here's our team is loyal to each other, and we might say, well, we agree with that. So you pull this down, or we trust one another, follow through on what they promise. I don't know. I think there's a lot of blowhards around here. We don't have drama or gossip. We speak the truth in love without fear. I disagree with that one. Okay. We enjoy working with each other. Conflicts and challenges are addressed in timely, respectful ways. And you go through all of these, from alignment. Let me we're not going to break all these down, but how about this one, Pam? Say some things about some of these communication issues.
Yeah, so every team member's contributions heard, appreciated, and valued.
Yeah.
I love these questions because they're specific enough that immediately we can think of examples. And so while it might seem, gosh, where would I land? It's easy to land. I also like the way as you drag it to the left, it turns red, and you kind of know, oh, that's a red for our team, that type of thing.
Yeah, and
vision and change.
Yeah.
Being communicated. Yeah.
And this last one down here, we know how to bring challenge and appropriate critique and feedback. I don't know what your experience has been like in your world, but I know a lot of places that I've been in, it's really hard for people to bring and receive critique and feedback.
Right on.
So what happens is you go through all of this and you end up, one after the next, and then you come up with an aggregate. And if we did this for your team, by the way, what happens is it comes in anonymously, and then it gets pooled, and then we share the results with you, and we say this is where some gaps are. What do we typically find, Pam?
I think that the average that I've heard is for all of our clients across the greater giant worldwide is teams typically come in at about 60%, which, you know, would be like a letter grade D on your report card.
Yeah, yeah.
That wasn't a good grade for me.
You didn't do so well when you get D's, yeah. But
No.
but the truth is that that we are. It's almost incalculable. If you have a 60% payoff, I mean, it's a 60% return on what you think should be your investment with your people. The We're just leaving so much on the table, right? So, you know, I know to your point, Pam, if we can move the dial in any direction, you don't necessarily need us to do this. But if you just remember that these things matter so much, you're going to be in a much better place.
Absolutely.
I'm going to show you, we're just going to show you a couple of commercials, but they really come by way of resources that we want you to see, we want you to be able to use in your world. So allow me, and by the way, any of you have any kind of a comment or anything on what we're saying, please unmute yourself and let us know. So.
Tom, I am thinking through this communication piece of the, what is it, 6 elements of high-performing teams.
Yeah.
And I think in my client relationships that aren't working, the communication piece is the weakest, but obviously all these other things are tied to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm doing more verbal processing. Okay, not related. That pop-up you just had, I just had that same one today. So
Yeah,
just
okay.
letting everybody know Tom is not doing anything inappropriate.
Yeah.
This may be more like verbal processing than anything else, but I'm just thinking, like, Tom, you said earlier, how's that working for you? And it's not working for me. Like, when I think of those particular client relationships, I don't know how they feel, but it's not working for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think I'm someone with a softer voice, but I just need to, in this particular area, be more direct and say, we need to communicate more regularly because this is not working.
Sure. Well, in fact, we can entertain conversation right now too. If others say, "Hey," because what happens when you're leading from the middle of the pack? All right.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're let's say the CEO, and we've just been invited into a large company to share some things. The CEO bequeaths it. This is how it's going to be. You know, then they take the survey, et cetera, et cetera. But from the middle of the pack, well, we would have some suggestions, and I don't know if you have any right offhand, Pam, but if any of you do, you know, how do you do it if you're coming from a place of a client versus a provider, you know, a situation?
Yeah, you know, I guess this is going to sound like a big giant plug, but it's what we do. In that, what I think has helped tremendously for me, because Joy, I am like you, bringing challenge is very difficult for me. It actually sucks a lot of life and energy out of me when I have to do it. And I've really noticed that about myself. Even as I'm aware of it, it's like I still notice it does that. But what I have been really leaning on now is some of this language. And it isn't always a case where, you know, you both have to even know the giant tools and the giant language, but even to just use the words, you know, this is not easy for me, but I really need to bring challenge. to just our communication. I'm really struggling, and I'm just wondering if you felt this as well, and I just want you to know I'm going to work toward growth in this area because I really want this to be better in our relationship. I think things are going to go more smoothly. So in that case, I'm leaning on the giant tools and the giant language a little bit because I'm just borrowing the words, challenge. I'm struggling to bring challenge. That's really helped me tremendously in that kind of situation as it relates to communication.
Well, in fact, that's so much of what we're about is give a visual because it allows a fast forward on a conversation. So to be able to say, yeah, I like how you said that, Pam, because you own your own weakness and you say, I don't like doing this. It's hard for me to bring a challenge. But or do I have permission to bring a challenge? So you can. I mean, the fact is, even from the middle of the pack, you can be a change agent in some mighty, mighty ways. And we'll give you our contact information because we're happy for you to follow up. You might enjoy having a follow-up with Pam as a sojourner, one who doesn't easily like to bring challenge. And I'm pointing you to the giant worldwide website because it's a great resource for you. And let me just tell you that if you go across the top here, and I know it's probably small on your screen, but we talk about developing ourselves, developing our teams, developing our organizations, but across the top, make sure you're getting the blog because it's really, really good stuff. This will help you on your journey to be one who's more fully relationally intelligent, emotionally intelligent, and to help others in your organization. The podcast is outstanding. It's called the Liberator Podcast. Please, please, please get that, all right? There's books and other things that are referenced here that can help you a lot. But while we're showing you this, and this is part of the commercials, I just want you to see, okay, so for instance, you go on this and you see develop yourself. Well, there is something in here, there's something called a leader intensive. Pam and I have each recently done leader intensives with leaders that have vastly, just in a short order of time, brought them into greater places of security and strength. All right. I want to point this out to you, and if you go under the develop yourself part and you go to this place where it talks about discover X core, I really want you to see this and take some time on your own. But this is a commercial right now about, where's it? Okay, it's taken me a little time to load here. Which is about something that is regionally now being brought into various regions in the country. It used to only be out of Atlanta. And for those of you who are in the Wisconsin area, I mean, you hit it and you keep going and you'll see, well, there's one right here in La Crosse. Pam and I are part of the leadership team of that. It's starting in October. I was part of X-Corps a few years ago. Best investment in my life ever in terms of my own leadership. Okay, but you can look around and see if regionally there's one that you'd be interested in. And very quickly, what's involved in X-Corps, this is going to start in October. And what it's involved in, and scroll and look for yourself, is that there are 4 quarterly retreats, overnight retreats, starting in October. There are monthly core groups, and there's 2 experiences like this where we work as a group together, be twice a month for 75 minutes. And then there's one-on-ones with senior associates such as Pam or myself, and then there's a whole lot more to it. Pam, anything you want to say about the X-Corps? Because I know you're cranked up about the fact that we're going to be bringing this regionally.
Yeah, I really am super excited about this. Just the planning and just the sharing of the experiences of people who have done X-Corps, as you mentioned, your own experience with it, is just transformational. So I'm super excited. I know you and I will both be leading core groups that will come out of that. And so I'm just really fired up to work with people who want to really get to the next level in their leadership, regardless of what kind of organization they're leading in. Even people who are just leading in their families. it's going to be a transformational thing, and I'm really excited to be a part of
Yeah.
it.
Awesome, and I appreciate that plug, but it's hardly a plug because you will never see a person who goes through XCore uh, do anything but rave about it and say it was their best leadership move. The cost on that, by the way, it's $500 per month for the year. And then, but if there's 2 or more from an organization, then it's just $400 a month. And there, you would be responsible for your overnight housing, but I think we cover just about all the meals, relative to that. So, but looking back, you would not regret that. Pam, say something about our Lunch and Learn, the next one we're doing closer to you in Delafield, Wisconsin.
Yeah, so August 16th, that's a Tuesday, we are doing a Lunch and Learn from 11:30 to 1 o'clock in downtown Delafield, a place called Revere's. The topic that we are going to be talking about for that one is called the 5 Voices of a Team, and it's really about how to help everyone around the table to be heard and to bring their best. And yeah, really excited about that. We did just do one in Madison earlier this week, and I think people were pleased with what they walked away with, because we make sure that you leave with a new understanding, a new knowledge, a tool that you can put to work right away in your home, at work, in your community. So that will be worth your time. It's really a no strings attached. We do a little commercial at the end like this to give people an opportunity to get on board with, maybe taking the next step in their own journey, but there's no strings attached. It's a free lunch, and you get to hang out with us for an hour and a half. So how could that not be fun?
Yeah, that's like this, only, you get to eat. So, okay. Let me put up, and this is just our contact information. For some reason mine is red. I don't know what happened with that, but
That's danger, I think.
it could be danger. If I were you, I would contact Pam. All right, especially with your complaints relative to this time. But we have a couple of minutes left, and I'd love to hear the rest of, if anyone else has thoughts. Chris, Joy, I see Dave's online. I know Tim and others that are with us. Just curious what other thoughts you might have, what relative to things that we said or things that you've learned, or even resources you might recommend to achieve a better bottom line through increasing relational intelligence. Well, we'll take that as a well-fed then. All right. So here's how to get a hold of us. Continue to follow, and yeah, what we're up to, and we'll be there for you. We're happy to give of our times to get you links to help your team get better, but go for it, because we're all in this thing together. Okay.